Welcome to a peaceful journey through the ancient mountain ranges of Central Asia. As you settle in, allow your mind to drift with us across vast landscapes that have stood watch over our world for millions of years. These timeless sentinels of stone and snow have witnessed the slow turning of our planet's history, unchanging and eternal in their quiet majesty. The mountains of Central Asia form one of the world's most extensive highland regions, stretching in gentle arcs and clusters across Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan, Uzbekistan, and Turkmenistan. These ancient formations create a natural boundary between the sprawling steppes to the north and the desert landscapes to the south, offering a varied tapestry of geological wonders that have developed over countless millennia. As we begin our journey tonight, imagine yourself resting comfortably at the base of these magnificent ranges, looking up at distant peaks bathed in soft moonlight. The air here is crisp and clear, carrying the gentle scents of mountain herbs and distant glacial waters. Take a deep breath and allow yourself to relax completely as we explore these peaceful mountain corridors together. The mountains we'll be visiting tonight began forming nearly 300 million years ago, when ancient continental plates slowly merged together in a process so gradual that if a human could have witnessed it, it would have appeared completely motionless. This unhurried geological dance continued for millions upon millions of years, gradually pushing the Earth's crust upward into the magnificent formations we see today. The Tian Shan, Pamir, Altai, and Hindu Kush systems make up the primary mountain ranges of this region, each with its own distinct characteristics and peaceful presence on our planet. These ranges contain peaks that rise gently from the surrounding plains, climbing steadily upward through different ecological zones before reaching their snow-capped summits far above the clouds. Throughout human history, these mountains have served as quiet guardians of ancient civilizations, watching over the rise and fall of empires along the historic Silk Road trading routes. Caravans would wind their way through high mountain passes, following river valleys and plateau regions as they transported goods between east and west. The mountains themselves remained unchanged, observing the slow progression of human activity with the patient perspective that only geological features can possess. As we continue our journey tonight, we'll explore the gentle topography of these ranges, their river systems, climate patterns, and the peaceful relationship between the mountains and the people who have made their homes among these elevated landscapes. The steady, unchanging nature of these ancient formations offers us a perfect metaphor for finding tranquility in our own lives, standing firm and peaceful regardless of the changing conditions around us. Let your breath become slow and steady like the gentle mountain winds that flow across these elevated landscapes. Allow your body to feel heavy and comfortable, supported just as these mountains are supported by the solid earth beneath them. As we continue our exploration, you may find your mind drifting peacefully between wakefulness and sleep, and that is perfectly fine. The mountains have stood for millions of years and will continue their quiet vigil long after our journey together concludes. The Tian Shan mountain system, whose name translates to the wonderfully soothing phrase, celestial mountains, extends for approximately 1,500 kilometers in a gentle east-west arc. The average elevation of the range is around 3,000 meters above sea level, with certain peaks reaching higher into the peaceful sky above. The western portions of the Tian Shan contain the Kyrgyz Range, which rises gradually from the surrounding plains, its slopes covered in grassy meadows that wave softly in the mountain breezes. The topography of the Tian Shan is characterized by parallel ridges separated by long, wide valleys. These valleys, known as intermontane basins, create peaceful corridors between the higher elevations. The Fergana Valley, measuring 300 kilometers in length and 70 kilometers in width, forms one such tranquil intermontane basin, nestled protectively between mountain ranges on all sides. The valley floor rests at an elevation of 400 to 1,000 meters above sea level, creating a peaceful transition zone between the higher mountains. Moving eastward through the Tian Shan, we encounter ever so gradually increasing elevations. The central Tian Shan reaches heights of over 7,000 meters, including Peak Pobeda, which stands at 7,439 meters, and Khan Tengri, measuring 7,010 meters. These majestic peaks are permanently covered in snow and small glaciers, their white summits reflecting soft moonlight on clear nights. The eastern reaches of the Tian Shan gradually merge with the Gobi Desert, creating a fascinating transition zone where mountain landscapes slowly give way to desert plains. South of the Tian Shan lies the Pamir mountain system, often referred to by the pleasantly descriptive phrase, the roof of the world. The Pamirs form a complex knot of high ranges and elevated plateaus, with an average elevation of 3,500 meters. The eastern Pamirs feature wide, flat valleys between mountain ranges, creating high-altitude plateaus where the air is thin and peaceful. These plateaus extend for hundreds of square kilometers, their surfaces gently undulating like frozen waves across a stone ocean. The Tranquil Range forms the northern boundary of the Pamirs, with Peak Lenin rising to 7,134 meters above sea level. This impressive mountain stands as a quiet sentinel over the surrounding landscape, its slopes draped in permanent snow fields and small glaciers that glisten softly in the daylight. The Academy of Sciences Range runs through the central Pamirs, containing Ismail Simoni Peak, which reaches a height of 7,495 meters, making it the highest point in the Pamir mountain system. As we travel through these mountain landscapes in our mind's eye, we can observe how the topography changes with elevation. The lower slopes, between 1,000 and 2,500 meters, are often covered in grasslands and scattered forests. Above this elevation, we find alpine meadows with their delicate, colorful flowers that bloom briefly during the short summer months. Beyond 3,500 meters, the landscape transitions to a rocky, sparse environment where only the hardiest plants can survive. Finally, above 4,500 meters, we reach the realm of permanent snow and ice, a pristine world of white that remains largely untouched by the changing seasons below. The gentle rivers that flow through these mountain ranges begin as small streams high in the glacial regions. These tiny rivulets gradually merge together as they flow downward, forming increasingly substantial watercourses that eventually become the major rivers of Central Asia. The Amu Darya and Sirdarya rivers both originate in these high mountain regions, their waters beginning as melting snow before embarking on long journeys across the lowlands below. Between the Tian Shan and Pamir systems lies the Alai Valley, a broad, peaceful corridor measuring 150 kilometers in length and up to 40 kilometers in width. The valley floor sits at an elevation of approximately 3,000 meters above sea level, creating a high-altitude passage between mountain systems. The perspective from within the Alai Valley is one of tremendous spaciousness, with wide-open views framed by distant mountain peaks on the horizon. The Altai mountain system forms the northern reaches of Central Asia's mountainous region, extending across the borders of Russia, Mongolia, China, and Kazakhstan. The name Altai derives from the Mongolian word meaning gold mountain, a reference to the rich mineral deposits found within its geological formations. The Altai Range stretches for approximately 2,000 kilometers in a southeast to northwest direction. Its highest peak, Mount Belukka, reaching an elevation of 4,506 meters above sea level. The topography of the Altai system features a series of parallel ridges that gradually increase in elevation from west to east. The western portions of the range consist of relatively low hills covered in grassy meadows and scattered forests of birch and pine. As we move eastward, the landscape transitions to higher mountains with deep valleys carved by ancient glaciers. The central and eastern Altai contain numerous glacial lakes, their still waters reflecting the surrounding peaks in perfect mirror images. The Hindu Kush range forms the southwestern extent of Central Asia's mountain systems, extending from central Afghanistan into northern Pakistan. The name translates approximately to Hindu killer or Hindu slayer, a reference to the challenging conditions faced by travelers from the Indian subcontinent who attempted to cross these formidable mountains. The Hindu Kush stretches for approximately 800 kilometers, with average elevations ranging from 4,000 to 5,000 meters. The topography of the Hindu Kush is characterized by steep, rugged peaks and narrow valleys, creating a more dramatic landscape than the gentler slopes found in some other Central Asian ranges. The highest point in the Hindu Kush is Tirich Mir, which reaches an elevation of 7,708 meters above sea level. The mountains feature deeply carved valleys with swift-flowing rivers fed by melting snow and glacial ice. As we contemplate these varied mountain landscapes, we can observe the different ways in which geological processes have shaped the Earth's surface over immense spans of time. Tectonic forces have pushed these massive ranges upward, while erosion from water, ice, and wind has simultaneously worked to wear them down. This continuous interplay of opposing forces occurs at an exceptionally slow pace, creating a sense of timelessness that encourages deep relaxation. The mountain ranges of Central Asia contain numerous high passes that have served as transit routes for thousands of years. The Torogart Pass in the Tian Shan, situated at an elevation of 3,752 meters, has connected China and Kyrgyzstan since ancient times. The Kunjarab Pass in the Karakoram Range, at an elevation of 4,693 meters, links Pakistan and China along what is now the highest paved international border crossing in the world. Throughout these mountain systems, we find expansive glaciers slowly flowing down from the highest elevations. The Fedchenko Glacier in the Pamirs extends for 77 kilometers, making it the longest glacier in the world outside the polar regions. This massive river of ice moves at a rate of approximately 30 to 60 centimeters per day, or roughly 100 to 200 meters per year. A pace so gradual that it would be imperceptible to someone observing it directly. The mountain ranges of Central Asia cover a total area of approximately 3.6 million square kilometers, which represents roughly 7.8% of the Asian continent's total land area. Within this vast mountainous region, we find tremendous diversity in elevation, with the lowest foothills beginning at around 500 meters above sea level, and the highest peaks reaching nearly 8,000 meters. The Tian Shan mountain system alone covers an area of approximately 400,000 square kilometers, extending across portions of Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Uzbekistan, and China. Within this range, there are 40 peaks that exceed 6,000 meters in elevation. The average height of the range increases gradually from west to east, with the western portions averaging 2,000 meters and the eastern sections averaging 4,000 meters. The mountain ranges of Central Asia contain approximately 8,400 glaciers, covering a total area of 16,500 square kilometers. The largest concentration of glaciers is found in the Pamirs, where approximately 3,700 individual glaciers cover an area of 8,470 square kilometers. The Tian Shan contains roughly 3,000 glaciers, covering 5,900 square kilometers, while the Altai Range has about 1,700 glaciers, covering 2,130 square kilometers. The volume of ice stored in these mountain glaciers is estimated at 1,543 cubic kilometers, which is equivalent to 1,543,000,000,000 cubic meters of water. If this entire volume were to melt, it would be sufficient to cover the entire country of Kyrgyzstan to a depth of 7.7 meters, or to fill Lake Baikal to approximately 7% of its total volume. The average rate of glacial retreat in Central Asian mountains has been measured at between 5 and 20 meters per year, depending on the specific glacier and local conditions. The Fedchenko Glacier has retreated approximately 1 kilometer since it was first measured in 1933, losing an average of about 16 meters per year. The thickness of this glacier ranges from 70 meters at its terminus to more than 1,000 meters at its center, with an average thickness of approximately 300 meters. The mountain ranges of Central Asia give rise to several major river systems that provide water to the arid regions below. The Amu Darya River, which originates in the Pamir Mountains, flows for 2,540 kilometers before reaching the Aral Sea. The average discharge of this river is approximately 97 cubic meters per second, delivering roughly 3 billion cubic meters of water annually to the regions through which it flows. The Sirdarya River begins in the Tian Shan Mountains and travels 2,212 kilometers to the Aral Sea. Its average discharge is approximately 37 cubic meters per second, resulting in an annual flow volume of about 1.17 billion cubic meters. The Ili River, which originates in the Tian Shan Range, flows for 1,439 kilometers before emptying into Lake Balkhash. Its average discharge is 480 cubic meters per second, or 15.1 billion cubic meters annually. The watersheds of Central Asia's mountain ranges can be divided into 3 major basins. The Aral Sea Basin, which includes the Amu Darya and Sirdarya rivers, covers an area of 1.8 million square kilometers. The Tarim Basin, which receives water from the eastern Tian Shan and Kunlun Mountains, encompasses approximately 1 million square kilometers. The Dzungarian Basin, situated between the Tian Shan and Altai ranges, covers roughly 777,000 square kilometers. Within these mountain ranges, we find numerous high-altitude lakes of varying sizes. Lake Isikkul in the northern Tian Shan is the second largest mountain lake in the world, with a surface area of 6,236 square kilometers and a maximum depth of 668 meters. This lake never freezes, despite its elevation of 1,607 meters above sea level, due to its slight salinity and the thermal effects of its considerable depth. Lake Karakul in the eastern Pamirs sits at an elevation of 3,914 meters, making it one of the highest large lakes in the world. It covers an area of 380 square kilometers and reaches a maximum depth of 240 meters. This lake was formed approximately 25 million years ago when a meteorite struck the Earth, creating a crater that subsequently filled with water from melting glaciers. The total volume of fresh water stored in the lakes of Central Asia's mountain regions is estimated at 1,738 cubic kilometers. If distributed equally among the approximately 105 million residents of the Central Asian countries, this would provide each person with 16.5 million cubic meters of water, which would be sufficient to meet an individual's water needs for approximately 275,000 years, based on average consumption patterns. The geological composition of these mountain ranges varies considerably depending on location and elevation. The Tian Shan is composed primarily of sedimentary rocks, such as limestone and sandstone in its outer ranges, with metamorphic and igneous intrusions forming the central core. The Pamirs contain extensive areas of granitic rocks, along with metamorphosed sedimentary layers that have been folded and thrust upward by tectonic forces. The average slope angle in the Central Asian mountain ranges varies from approximately 15 degrees in the lower foothills to as much as 45 degrees on the steepest high elevation slopes. The gentlest terrain is found in the high plateaus of the eastern Pamirs, where slope angles may be as low as 2 to 5 degrees across areas extending for hundreds of square kilometers. The elevation gradient in these mountain systems creates distinct ecological zones arranged in vertical bands. The lowest zone, extending from 500 to 1,500 meters, is characterized by steppe vegetation and cultivated fields where sufficient water is available. The middle zone, from 1,500 to 3,000 meters, features coniferous forests on north-facing slopes and alpine meadows on south-facing exposures. The highest zone, above 3,000 meters, transitions from sparse alpine vegetation to bare rock and permanent snow. The biodiversity of Central Asia's mountain regions includes approximately 5,500 species of vascular plants, of which roughly 1,500 are endemic, meaning they are found nowhere else on Earth. The region is home to approximately 900 vertebrate animal species, including 150 mammals, 500 birds, 150 reptiles and amphibians, and 100 fish species. Of these, approximately 50 species are considered endangered due to habitat loss and human activities. The climate of Central Asia's mountain ranges is influenced by several factors, including elevation, latitude, and the region's continental position, far from moderating oceanic influences. The mountains themselves create distinct climate zones, with conditions varying dramatically depending on elevation, slope aspect, and location within the larger mountain systems. The general climate pattern of the region is characterized by cold winters and mild to warm summers, with precipitation amounts that vary considerably by location. The western portions of these mountain ranges receive more precipitation than the eastern sections due to their position relative to moisture-bearing air masses that move eastward from the Caspian Sea and the Atlantic Ocean. Average annual precipitation in the western Tian Shan ranges from 800 to 1,600 millimeters. decreasing to 300 to 400 millimeters in the central portions, and further declining to just 100 to 200 millimeters in the eastern reaches. This gradual reduction in moisture creates a transition from relatively lush, forested slopes in the west to more arid, sparsely vegetated landscapes in the east. The Pamir Mountains experience similarly variable precipitation patterns, with the western ranges receiving 1,200 to 1,800 millimeters annually, while the eastern plateau regions may receive as little as 60 to 100 millimeters per year. This eastern section of the Pamirs is sometimes referred to as a cold desert due to its combination of high elevation and minimal precipitation. The seasonal distribution of precipitation also varies across the region. The western mountain ranges receive the majority of their moisture during winter and spring, when westerly air flows bring storms from the Mediterranean and Caspian regions. The eastern portions experience a more even distribution of precipitation throughout the year, though the amounts are considerably lower overall. Temperature patterns in these mountain ranges are strongly influenced by elevation, with average temperatures decreasing at a rate of approximately 0.6 degrees Celsius per 100 meters of elevation gain. At the lowest elevations, around 500 meters above sea level, average annual temperatures may reach 14 to 15 degrees Celsius. At middle elevations of 2,500 to 3,000 meters, the average annual temperature drops to approximately 3 to 5 degrees Celsius. At the highest permanently inhabited settlements, around 4,000 meters, average annual temperatures may be as low as -5 degrees Celsius. The annual temperature range in these mountain regions is quite substantial, reflecting the continental climate patterns. At mid-elevations around 2,000 meters, summer temperatures may reach daily highs of 25 to 30 degrees Celsius, while winter temperatures can drop to degrees Celsius or lower. This annual temperature variation of more than 50 degrees is among the highest found in any mountain region on Earth. Daily temperature fluctuations are also considerable, particularly at high elevations, where the thin atmosphere allows rapid heating during daylight hours and quick cooling after sunset. In the eastern Pamirs at elevations above 4,000 meters, daytime temperatures of 15 degrees Celsius may drop to degrees Celsius during the night. Even in summer months, the mountains of Central Asia experience pronounced seasonal variations that influence vegetation patterns, animal behaviors, and traditional human activities in the region. The spring season typically begins in late March at lower elevations, but may not arrive until June at higher altitudes. This gradual progression of spring conditions creates a wave-like movement of blooming vegetation that advances up the mountainsides over a period of several months. Summer conditions generally prevail from June through August, though the season is considerably shorter at high elevations, where it may last only from mid-July to mid-August. During this brief summer period, alpine meadows burst into bloom with a profusion of colorful wildflowers that must complete their entire life cycle within a few short weeks. Autumn begins in September at high elevations and gradually extends downward, with the lower mountain zones experiencing fall conditions from October through November. This season is characterized by generally stable weather patterns, with clear skies and gradually cooling temperatures. Deciduous trees in the lower forest zones display yellow and golden foliage before shedding their leaves for the winter dormancy period. Winter arrives earliest at high elevations, often beginning in late September or early October above 3,000 meters. The winter season extends from November through February or March at middle and lower elevations. Snowfall amounts vary considerably across the region, with the western ranges receiving up to 1,500 millimeters of snow annually, equivalent to 150 centimeters or more of water, while the eastern regions may receive as little as 30 to 50 centimeters. Snow cover duration also varies with elevation and location. At elevations above 4,000 meters, snow may persist for 280 to 320 days per year, with some areas maintaining permanent snow cover. At middle elevations of 2,000 to 3,000 meters, snow typically covers the ground for 120 to 180 days annually. In the lower mountain zones below 1,500 meters, snow cover usually lasts for 60 to 90 days per year. The formation of glaciers in these mountain ranges depends on a combination of temperature and precipitation patterns. Glaciers form in areas where annual snowfall exceeds the amount that melts during summer months, allowing for the gradual accumulation and compaction of snow into ice. In the Tian Shan range, the snow line, the lowest elevation at which snow persists year-round, occurs at approximately 3,600 meters on north-facing slopes and 4,200 meters on south-facing slopes. The prevailing wind patterns across Central Asia's mountains are primarily westerly, bringing moisture-laden air masses from the Atlantic Ocean and Mediterranean Sea. These air flows are deflected and modified by the mountain ranges, creating local wind patterns that vary by valley and slope. Downslope winds, which occur when cool air masses flow from higher to lower elevations, are common in many valleys, particularly during night hours when surface cooling accelerates this downward movement of air. The mountains create distinctive microclimates that may differ substantially from regional patterns. North-facing slopes receive less direct sunlight than south-facing slopes, resulting in cooler temperatures, higher soil moisture levels, and different vegetation communities. Narrow valleys may experience limited air circulation, leading to temperature inversions where cool air becomes trapped beneath warmer air above. Seasonal weather patterns in these mountain regions influence the flow of rivers and streams throughout the year. Maximum discharge typically occurs in late spring and early summer, when warming temperatures accelerate the melting of winter snowpack. During this period, rivers may carry 5 to 10 times their base flow volume. Minimum flow rates occur in late winter before the onset of spring melting, and again in late summer after the majority of snow has melted from all but the highest elevations. The climate of Central Asia's mountains has shown gradual changes over recent decades, with average temperatures increasing at a rate of approximately 0.3 to 0.4 degrees Celsius per decade since the 1970s. This warming trend has been most pronounced at middle elevations between 2,000 and 3,500 meters. These temperature changes have influenced the timing of seasonal transitions, with spring conditions arriving an average of 4 to 7 days earlier than in previous decades. Precipitation patterns have also shown subtle shifts, with slight increases in winter precipitation in the western ranges and minor decreases in summer rainfall in the eastern regions. These changes have occurred gradually over many decades, too slowly to be perceptible without careful measurement and record keeping. The mountains moderate the climate of surrounding lowland areas by intercepting air masses and creating barriers to atmospheric circulation. The ranges prevent cold Arctic air masses from penetrating southward into the desert regions of Central Asia during winter months, while also blocking the northward movement of warm air from the deserts during summer. This moderating influence creates more stable climate conditions in the regions adjacent to the mountains than would otherwise exist. Within the mountains themselves, climate conditions change with each 1,000 meters of elevation at a rate roughly equivalent to traveling 500 to 700 kilometers northward in latitude. Thus, ascending from the lower slopes to the higher reaches of these mountains is climatically similar to journeying from temperate regions toward the Arctic. The interplay of elevation, aspect, and seasonal patterns creates rhythmic climate cycles that have remained largely consistent over centuries and millennia. These dependable patterns have shaped both the natural ecosystems and human activities in these mountain regions, creating a sense of timelessness and continuity that contrasts with the more rapid changes occurring in many lowland environments. The mountain ranges of Central Asia have been home to human populations for thousands of years, with archaeological evidence suggesting the presence of hunter-gatherer groups as early as 40,000 years ago. These earliest inhabitants followed seasonal patterns of movement, ascending to higher elevations during summer months to hunt alpine animals and gather plant resources, then returning to lower valleys for the winter season. The permanent settlement of these mountain regions began approximately 5,000 to 6,000 years ago, as early agricultural and pastoral communities established themselves in the wider valleys and lower slopes. These early settlements were typically located at elevations between 800 and 2,000 meters, where growing seasons were sufficiently long to support grain cultivation, and where winter conditions, while cold, were not prohibitively severe. The current population density in Central Asia's mountain regions varies considerably by elevation and location. The most densely settled areas are the broad intermontane valleys at elevations between 500 and 1,500 meters, where population densities may reach 60 to 100 people per square kilometer. At middle elevations from 1,500 to 2,500 meters, population densities typically range from 10 to 30 people per square kilometer. Above 3,000 meters, permanent settlements become increasingly sparse, with population densities below 5 people per square kilometer. Traditional settlement patterns in these mountains are characterized by clustered villages located near reliable water sources and on terrain suitable for agriculture. Villages are typically situated on alluvial fans at the mouths of side valleys, on river terraces above flood zones, or on gentle slopes with southern exposures. This positioning maximizes solar exposure for warmth while preserving flatter land for cultivation. The highest permanent settlements in Central Asia's mountains are found in the Pamirs, where villages such as Bulankul in Tajikistan are situated at elevations of approximately 3,900 meters above sea level. These high elevation communities are among the highest permanently inhabited places on Earth, rivaled only by settlements in the Tibetan Plateau and the Andes Mountains. Traditional architecture in these mountain regions reflects adaptations to local climate conditions and available building materials. In the western ranges, where precipitation is higher and forests more abundant, wooden structures are common, often with steeply pitched roofs designed to shed heavy snow loads. In the more arid eastern regions, buildings are typically constructed from stone and earth, with flat roofs that serve as outdoor living spaces during summer months. The traditional economic activities in Central Asia's mountains have centered around agriculture, pastoralism, and trade. Agricultural practices vary with elevation, with grain cultivation predominant below 2,500 meters, and animal husbandry becoming increasingly important at higher elevations. The growing season ranges from approximately 200 days at 1,000 meters elevation to just 60 to 70 days at 3,000 meters. Wheat and barley are the primary grain crops grown in these mountain regions, with cultivation extending to elevations of 2,800 meters in some areas. Potato cultivation reaches slightly higher to approximately 3,000 meters, while hardy vegetable crops such as turnips and cabbage can be grown up to 3,200 meters in sheltered locations with favorable exposures. Pastoral activities in the mountains follow traditional vertical migration patterns, with livestock moved progressively upward as spring and summer advance, then returned to lower elevations before the onset of winter. This practice, known as transhumance, makes efficient use of seasonally available grazing resources while allowing recovery periods for vegetation at each elevation zone. The predominant livestock species in these mountain regions are sheep and goats, which are well adapted to steep terrain and can utilize sparse vegetation effectively. Cattle are kept primarily in the lower valleys, where forage is more abundant. Yaks become increasingly important above 3,000 meters, as they are physiologically adapted to high elevations with thin air and cold temperatures. The human population of Central Asia's mountains includes diverse ethnic groups with distinct cultural traditions. The western and northern ranges are predominantly inhabited by Kyrgyz, Kazakh, and Tajik peoples, while the eastern regions include Uyghur, Mongol, and Tibetan communities. These various groups have developed specialized adaptations to their mountain environments, reflected in their traditional clothing, food systems, social structures, and belief systems. Traditional clothing in these mountain regions is designed for warmth and durability, typically featuring wool and felt as primary materials. Headwear is particularly important for protection from both cold temperatures and intense solar radiation at high elevations. Traditional felt hats with wide brims or ear flaps are common among many mountain communities, providing effective protection from the elements. Food systems in the mountains are based on a combination of cultivated crops, livestock products, and wild resources. Dairy products are especially important, including fermented mare's milk, kumis, dried cheese, kurat, and clarified butter. These high-calorie foods provide essential nutrients and energy for life in cold environments where caloric requirements are elevated. Traditional knowledge systems in these mountain regions include detailed understanding of weather patterns, plant properties, and animal behaviors. This knowledge has been accumulated over many generations and transmitted orally, creating a rich body of ecological wisdom adapted to specific local conditions. Weather prediction, in particular, relies on careful observation of cloud patterns, wind directions, and animal behaviors that may signal approaching changes. The settlement history of these mountain regions has been influenced by larger political developments in surrounding lowland areas. During periods of conflict or conquest in the lowlands, mountain populations often increased as people sought refuge in less accessible areas. Conversely, during periods of stability and economic growth in lowland regions, some mountain communities experienced outmigration as people sought economic opportunities elsewhere. The cultural significance of mountains in Central Asian traditions is reflected in numerous legends, songs, and religious practices. Mountains are often perceived as sacred spaces or as dwelling places of spirits and deities. Certain peaks are considered particularly sacred and may be the focus of pilgrimages or ritual observances. This spiritual dimension adds cultural value to the physical landscape, creating places of special significance within the broader mountain environment. Traditional craft production in these mountain regions includes textile making, metalwork, wood carving, and leather working. These crafts utilize locally available materials and incorporate designs and motifs that often reflect natural elements from the mountain environment. Textile production, especially, is highly developed in many mountain communities with distinctive patterns and techniques that identify specific regions or ethnic groups. Contemporary life in Central Asia's mountains reflects a blend of traditional practices and modern influences. Many communities maintain seasonal migration patterns with livestock, while also engaging with market economies and new technologies. Solar panels, satellite communications, and modern medical care have become increasingly available even in remote settlements, changing certain aspects of mountain life, while core cultural values and environmental adaptations persist. The pace of life in these mountain communities generally follows seasonal rhythms, with intense activity during the brief summer period when agricultural work must be completed, followed by quieter winter months when outdoor activities are limited by cold and snow. This cyclical pattern creates a distinctive temporal experience that differs from the more constant pace typical of urban environments. As we conclude our journey through the ancient mountain ranges of Central Asia, we can appreciate the timeless quality of these majestic landscapes. The mountains themselves change only imperceptibly over human lifespans, creating a sense of permanence and stability. The seasonal cycles that govern both natural processes and human activities return year after year with reassuring regularity. This continuity offers a soothing perspective that contrasts with the rapid pace of change in many aspects of modern life. The mountains remind us that some things endure, following rhythms measured not in minutes or hours, but in seasons, decades, and centuries. This expanded temporal perspective can help us find a sense of peace and proportion in our own lives. As you drift toward sleep, imagine yourself resting comfortably in a peaceful mountain valley, with gentle slopes rising around you and distant peaks silhouetted against the night sky. The ancient mountains stand as quiet guardians, their presence reassuring and constant. Allow yourself to synchronize with their unhurried rhythm, letting go of the day's concerns and entering the rejuvenating realm of rest.